There
So
we go.
how we normally do is to introduce yourself. So could you
Okay.
let our people know who you are?
Sure. My name is Tom Jacobs, and I go by the moniker Impact Pilot, and I help solopreneurs, solo practitioners get better at converting leads into paying clients. Amazing. And how long have
Okay.
you been doing that for? It feels like all my life, but but officially, I've been doing this for 5 years, but I've been teaching sales for about 10 years now, just off and on. I owned a fitness center for 10 years, and I bought that in 2008, and I sold it in 2018. And during that time, that's where I really learned how to hone my sales skills because I almost went broke, and because I
Oops.
couldn't door, right? Couldn't sell anything. So I had to learn. And so so I started doing that. And then I ultimately got hired to coach other fitness business owners on how to sell fitness. And then I took that knowledge and created
And
my own deal.
are you successful at it?
I, well, I think the success comes from the clients that I have. So they're successful in terms of having a higher conversion rate or closing more deals
Yeah.
than they were before they talked to me. So yeah, I think so.
But I suppose if one of your clients was sat next to you at this moment in time, what would they
Mm.
say about you as a person and about what you do?
Oh, that's such a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that before. Let me ask my no. Um, it's times that I've actually put out on social media and said that I love teaching people how to sell. I remember one old client put another comment on that post, and she was like, "Tom, like you transformed how I sold fitness, and it didn't feel sleazy. I felt like I was heard by you and coached appropriately to get the results that I got."
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm really patient most of the time. Um, but also just I feel for the others. I'm very empathetic, and um, so when I'm talking to heart-centered salespeople, and that's typically anybody that's in the health and wellness field, they don't want to kind of beat somebody over the head with buy, and do all these closing techniques and do all that. And when I come to the approach that I come from is more consultative and figuring out what the problem is and
Yeah.
can I help you solve it? They like that.
I'm getting flashbacks because I run a drug and alcohol rehab in England. And one of the things I remember when we opened, we had this very virgin team that really were made up of counselors, support workers, admin staff, and actually they had to become salespeople so that we could actually earn some money. And it was, that you could see them squirming down the end of the phone, introducing themselves to the local government people that do funding and things like that, and I'm going, Just build relationships. That's all this is about. It's about building relationships with people. You're not going to sell anything to anybody. You are just purely building relationships." And I think, and now they know that. We've been open for, don't know how long I've been open, 18 years.
Yeah, something
Yeah,
like
18
that.
years. And they know that now because all they do is work on relationships. But at the time, it's really scary when you're entering a new relationship with somebody, or indeed you're trying to sell yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's you kind of hit the nail on the head there with that it is all about relationship. And when new people come into thinking that they need to sell something, I think that's we all have these misconception of what sales is based
Yeah.
on our own past experience with salespeople, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And I think a lot of people fear that, I have to learn like this whole new technique. I don't have the gift of gab. I'm an introvert, like all that little mind trash that goes on in somebody's head. And really I'm introverted. I don't like talking on the phone. I mean, it's like I am like all of my clients. And yet I found a process that works for me. And that's the process that I teach. And when an introvert or an extrovert or, somebody that just doesn't feel like they can sell anything, when they follow a process and they have it set like that, the sky's the limit in terms of how they progress.
And and something else, Mike, I said, I asked Mike who you were, to be honest, and he just showed me a little clip, and one of the clips that he showed me about you was about storytelling,
Mm,
and I love that because I think everybody's story builds that communication. And I know certainly for myself and Mike, we're very much, our relationship has been built on a story that has been developed through my business, then Mike's business, then the charity that we run, and then our links to the community and the work that we do within the community. And I think
mm.
a lot of my stuff has come from my own background or my difficult background in writing a book and various other bits and pieces. And for Mike, it's been through his own kind of, well, your own development, isn't it, really?
Well, this is it, yeah, and I think what's really interesting, and when you refer this back to sales, as many people know, people buy from people, and if you can express a story and tell your story in such a way that links in with the product or service that you're going to sell, people are going to buy into that more. And I think that's why
Yep.
when you go into an IT hardware store, or you go and buy a TV, you know. It's almost annoying when salespeople come up to you because all they're talking about is the functions the TV has. They don't. There's no story. They're not committed to that product, and
Right.
it's a weird process, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a zero sum game for them because it's just a transaction at
Yeah,
that part. They're
exactly.
they're not trying to build a relationship. And the salespeople that progress, and like one of my first jobs in college was working at Radio Shack. And I don't know if anybody remembers that brand, but
I
it's
only know
like
it
a
because of The Big Bang Theory.
okay, yeah, okay. So, big retail brand of, computers and electronics and cellular phones and stuff. But, there was one guy that just outsold everybody, and everybody was on commission, for the most part, and he was not about the one transaction. He was all about building a relationship, knowing that if he became friends
Yeah,
or a trusted resource to that client, they're gonna keep coming back to him
yeah,
and to Radio Shack, and he'll be able to add on to what they've purchased. And, it just right when you were talking about that, it really struck in my mind. I was like, yeah, I mean, if you think about, selling electronics, that it's, how can I get a story around electronics? It's pretty easy, right? You can talk about, the first time that you watched a TV show and what that meant, or movie night at home, and how that, the family time is really enriched because everybody is watching The Big Bang Theory, or whatever the
yeah.
family TV. Right.
And I think, no, you got a really valuable point there because, like, for me, technology is not, I can do technology to a certain degree. I'm going to cough, excuse me. um, And I, like, have Mike to the left of me when he's around, and when my youngest son's not around, Mike's around. And it's like I can always call on somebody to help me out. But I'm also one of those people that will go in, say, looking at TVs. I'll go into a TV shop and I'll go, treat me like I know nothing, because that way, treat me like your granny or your grandpa or whatever. And that way, and that's how I want to be treated as a human
Mm,
being that I have some form of respect and relationship with. And we used to have a local store, and I would go in there and we would buy everything from them. Literally everything, washing machines, dishwashers, TVs, you name it. We'd go in there and say, right, we'll have two of them and we'll have three of those or whatever. And that was it. And sadly, they closed down
oh,
because not everybody locally went local, and we live in a very small community. And
mm,
I think you miss that when you don't have that, and going to one of these great big stores that you've got, they don't work on commission in the UK, they work on a salary. And so they
yeah.
don't need to fight for their money each week or each month in the same way as they do in the States. And so as a result, you kind of think you just get this like, oh,
Yeah.
hello, how can I help you? So I try and always engage people in that sense of, right, okay, you're obviously really bored about your job, but can you just treat me like I'm your granny who knows nothing, and etc. And generally, I get that. And they're
Yeah.
pretty good. But I think I have to do that because of what I do for a living. I can do that,
Mm.
but I don't think everybody has the ability to do that. The shopper doesn't have the ability to do that.
No, that's very true, and I think I don't know how much you know about kind of why we have a podcast, but Angie and I are trustees of a mental health charity um, in the southwest of England, and one of the reasons we started this podcast really was to share the lives and experiences of anyone really, and share it
Mhm.
with kind of the community. And it's you know the number of people we support is a very large number, and I wonder how things like mental health affect people in sales. I mean, you touched on it earlier around being an introvert, and you know how that affects you when you come to sell. And I think anyone who has or suffers from some kind of difficulty with mental health, and if they're in a
Mhm.
sales role, that must be even more difficult. Is that something you've found when you've been talking to people, supporting people, and training people?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing that comes up is anxiety. So, anybody that has social anxiety issues, or depression, or even bipolar, or
Mm,
anywhere on that spectrum, where you can
yeah,
have those really up days and the really bad days, and that can be a challenge. And the way through that, at least for me, it was always about the process, because it didn't matter if I was having a good day or a bad day. I had the process. I knew step 1 to step 7 that I had to go through to make a sale. And I think that comforts a lot of people, introverted, and especially those that have a lot of anxiety, because now you have a structure, and you don't have to rely on, like, a lot of gymnastics in your head, in terms of what comes next in the sales presentation. Like, what should I say here? You just have your script, and you're ready to go. Like, you have that flow, and it comes with that preparation that lowers that anxiety level and allows you to just kind of soldier through, so to speak.
Do you not, I mean, because my head went to script. Oh no, because probably, if you've not worked it out, I'm the gobby one, he's the quiet one, and and I hate it. I've got to use that word. I don't like using that word when I
Mm,
pick up my phone, because
mm,
my home phone's gone, the landline's gone, and it's like, and somebody won't shut up and even let me get a word in edgeways, and it's like, actually, I'm not interested in energy saving bills or anything like that, because they've got a script and they've just got to go through it. Does that
right.
not almost restrict people as well as perhaps help people?
Well, when I say script, I don't mean word for word. It's really about the flow of the conversation. So you have
Yeah,
kind of the items that you want to go through. You have some key questions that you want to ask, but the technique, I always kind of write it out longhand because people want the words.
yeah,
But then we work on, okay, you got the words, you know what you need to say. Now let's do it without the script, but just bullet points, so that it becomes a conversation. Because what happens when, those callers are calling you, they're just going through their script. They expect you to say something, and they're just going to, then they hear you say it, so then they go to the next part of the script and repeat. And you could say something completely different. They won't even hear it because they're preparing what the next thing that they're going to say. And that is a recipe for disaster, because they're
yeah.
not going to get anywhere. Versus if you have a call flow or a sales flow, then what's relatively coming up next, but you can be in the conversation and actively listening.
Yeah.
Because and that's how you make a sale, or get donors for your charity, is by hearing and understanding what their drivers are, and then fitting your presentation to those drivers, and wrap some stories around that just to keep it interesting.
And I'm a counselor. I'm a therapist, and in
Perfect.
fact, I do see people in the States, interestingly enough, via Zoom. But one of the things that people find is that they don't give themselves time to have that kind of relationship with people, do they? It's that rush. And it's the same as therapy. People think, oh, I'm seeing my therapist, I'm going to be cured in 3 weeks, and forget that actually you've been like this for the last 45 years. The chances are you're going to need a bit longer than 3 weeks to get through, as you say, that process, that ability to be able to do things differently, and also manage your mental health in all of that. And whether
Mhm.
that's anxiety, loss, depression, whatever, it's about acknowledging that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I went to these are probably you. I don't know how they are. Where do you actually live?
I actually live in Taiwan,
Oh,
but
wow.
I
Oh,
am yeah.
oh, right. Do you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
What made you
Yeah.
choose Taiwan?
I love that question because, I believe Taiwan chose me.
Okay,
Right.
great.
Okay.
Right. Oh, so here's my story. After I sold the fitness business, I wanted to travel quite a bit, and because having a brick and mortar just didn't allow me to do that, and actually live in as a local in different cultures. So over the last 5 years, I've been traveling kind of all over the world. Not so much in the last 3 years, but going different places and living like Thailand, Portugal, and spent time in the UK and in Spain, and in the Philippines was my last stop, and that lasted until March of 2020, and I was going to move then to Bangkok, and I had a scheduled trip to the U.S. already. I was going to do some speaking engagements and see family and friends, and so I was going to the airport in the Philippines. It was on the 15th of March, and it was I was actually on the last flight out of Cebu, um, before they shut the airports down in all of the Philippines. Get to Taiwan, everything was fine, it was open, but they shut the borders 2 days later on the 17th. Well, I had a 2-day layover, um,
Wow.
and I saw everything that was happening, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna stay. And so that
Wow.
2-day layover just turned into 3 years.
Wow.
So
And you're still there.
here I am. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Still
that's
waiting for that return flight. Come on, where is it?
so. Have you met? Oh, wow. Opening up loads more questions for me. So, have you got like a, a close knit community for yourself there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's made friends here, and there's expats, but also local Taiwanese, and I'm learning the language as well, which is
Amazing.
Mandarin, which is difficult,
One of the
but it's
hardest languages, isn't it?
yeah. Well, anything with a tonal language that is so much different than kind of the Romance languages, English and French and all those.
Wow. So have you met anybody? Or are you married, or what's your circumstances?
No, I'm single. Um,
Right.
just dating around a little bit, but yeah, yeah. When you're a a nomad or nomadic, kind of the single life is pretty good. But it's nice to meet new people
Yeah,
also.
yeah. So my youngest son, Will, he's a DJ and music producer, and he's how old is Will now? How old are you?
32.
Will's is 33. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's 33, and
Mm,
he's actually got a house in Detroit. Um, because it was cheap at
wow,
the time. Okay, it was cheaper than staying in hotels all the time between Tuesday and Thursday. So, but he's very much like that. It's like he's not. He doesn't tie himself up with. Whilst he's got a house in Detroit, he doesn't tie himself up with in relationships because actually he can't because of the lifestyle that he's got. It's just impossible to do that. And I think that we do put restrictions on ourselves, don't we, as human beings? Like we're supposed to be married at a certain age, we're supposed to have children by this age, we're supposed to do this, we're supposed to do that. It's that atypical stuff that we get caught up with. And I think that
yeah.
also relates to our careers as well, doesn't it?
Hmm.
So I
Stick
guess
with the company for 30 years and get the
Yeah,
pension.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
exactly that. So at what point do you stop becoming nomadic? If you've been there 3 years, you must be kind of almost
Yeah, so
settled.
Yeah, I guess technically I'm not nomadic anymore, so I'm not kind of moving around too
Caught you
much.
out there.
Right, yeah, thank you. No, well, yeah, so I'm an expat, I guess would be the proper term since I'm kind of this is my home base, but I still go out and do weeks at a time in different places. So,
So where do you
yeah,
do
that
your the main bulk of your work, your talking and stuff like that, and
right
Yeah.
here.
right from
Yeah,
from home?
right
Right.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
And
haven't stepped on a stage in like 4 years, which
oh,
is
wow.
it
And
feels weird.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, do you miss it? Do you miss doing public
Yeah,
speaking?
I do. I do. Miss it a lot, which is, you know, public speaking is the number one fear that most people have. And and I still get fearful. I still get anxiety
Yeah.
and nervous, but I love it. It just it fills my life up. So it's always fun. Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I probably feel the same. I think probably everyone does. You get a bit nervous when you do public speaking, and but actually, once you've done it, you feel fantastic, and it does feel really good. And I've done a few, not many at all, but when you do it, it is amazing. And it's even when you're doing, I do quite a lot of sales demos on Zoom, and the difference
Yeah.
between doing them face to face and via Zoom is so massive because you can't read people's body language as easily on a Zoom
Yeah.
call. And
Yeah.
have you noticed that in terms of your training and things, and
Yeah.
have people
Yeah.
commented on that in the past?
Yeah, especially doing like webinars
Mm.
because you aren't even seeing the people if you're doing a webinar,
Yeah,
and you might have a chat box that's, you know, going with different questions. But yeah, the first time I did a webinar, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like I'm not getting anything back. This
Yeah.
camera is giving me anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
no feedback whatsoever.
Right. So, you know, it's like I have to like pretend now that this lens is, you know, somebody, and I'm just like talking to that person, trying to get the energy up. Because, you know, when you're around, you know, 50 or 100 people or even 10 people in doing a talk, you can feed off that energy and adjust as necessary. But if you don't get that feedback, it's hard. So you just have to just kind of soldier through it and just push.
So how do you do that? I mean, I find that quite fascinating because I'm not I don't know if I could do that. I'm not sure I could. I like the interaction with others, and I like yeah, I just like that. I don't know if I can just sit to a camera. Perhaps I need to practice that one.
Yeah, no, it takes a little bit to get used to, so definitely do practice,
Yeah.
before you go live with it, but, yeah, it's you're just you're talking to whomever is listening on the other side, so what I typically, advise people to do is just either if they have somebody in the house that can help out, is just, like, stand on the other side of the camera,
Yeah.
and just be there and, you know, react to what's being said. Obviously, don't be silly necessarily. Well, I guess it depends on what you're talking about, but just having that other person to feel that energy back from is really important. But then once you kind of get things kind of rolling, you could put a picture of somebody behind the camera just so you can kind of there's somebody there maybe, and then after a while you just get used to just kind of feeding off your own energy
Yeah,
and
yeah.
pushing. Yeah.
That came to mind. What came to mind then was we recently, as a charity, got an award from the Prince of Wales for the work that we do
Ooh,
in the community, and I couldn't attend for personal circumstances, so they got a full sized photograph or model thing of me. What was it called?
Cardboard
A
cutout
cardboard cutout of me.
to take with her. So it was hilarious.
It's actually
oh,
underneath
okay.
my stair cupboard at this moment in time. Every time I open it, it scares the living heck out of me. But yeah, it's a quite a good idea. But I understand that
Yeah.
kind of that. I think that's a really good. But I like talking to people. I like people being telling me to shut up, and actually that's a load of rubbish. Or
Well, it's that human connection, isn't
yeah, I
it?
like the
That
human.
unfortunately, yeah, whilst COVID's been positive in some ways of allowing people to work from home and being able to do do conversations like this, which probably wouldn't be as popular or easy 4 years
Mm.
ago. Yeah, that is one of the downsides. Is yeah, you the human connection perhaps is not as good.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Mm.
So who are your customers now?
So, well, I like working with health and wellness
Yeah.
practitioners. Yeah, so think about naturopathic physios, chiropractors, functional medicine doctors, anybody that's kind of working in that sphere. And I have clients in the UK as well as in the US, and well, fitness centers and fitness coaches kind of fall in that range as well. But it's anybody that's what I would consider a heart-centered salesperson that wants to increase their sales or increase the revenue in their business without having to feel like they have to resort to some scammy tactics or things like that that just don't feel right.
Yeah.
That
'Cause
makes sense.
yeah, and because it's like those emails, isn't it? We were talking about it this morning, weren't we? And we are completely inundated with crappy emails from people about, "Oh, you didn't reply to my email that I sent, and are you still interested in this? And the appointment that you made, you didn't attend." And it's like, "I didn't make an appointment. I don't know who you are, so go
I
away,
I really
please."
love your email voice that you just put on there. Now, whenever I read an email, in my head, it's gonna sound like
Okay, I'll
that.
take that one. But it is that bit where actually it's about relationship building, like we said already, and building that rapport and getting that through to the next stage. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a sale out of it, but what you might do is you might get a relationship and somebody might go, "Do you know what? I was talking to somebody the other day and da 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 da, it might be worth giving them a ring."
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And really, like I pull sales down to just exactly what it really is, and in my opinion, anyway, it's you're finding out what the problem is, and you're offering a solution to that problem. And when you put it like that, it's not even you don't even feel like you're selling something, but rather allowing that prospect to purchase from you because now you've created this you understand number one what the problem is that the prospect is facing, and then two, like when you present your solution, now you can customize your presentation to exactly what the problems were. So by the end of your presentation, which should be very short, the prospects are like drooling and they're reaching for their credit card already, and they're like, you don't even have to ask
Yeah,
for payment, which
yeah.
is really a true sign that you've really solved their problem or attempting to solve their problem.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. And in my line of work, whenever I'm talking to a potential client or prospect about some software that we've built that exactly meets their needs, yeah, it's not a sale anymore. It's it's a done deal. It's how do we move this forward? How quick can you do this? And
Yeah.
that's a fantastic feeling as well. Because you
Mm.
know actually that what you're gonna give them is exactly what they want.
Yeah. And
But
and there's power in saying no in that too, that where you're um maybe they have a problem that you can't help them with.
yeah,
And you realize that halfway through the conversation, you're like, oh wait, I'm not the person for this. And let me give you a recommendation for a couple of people that could help you out.
yeah.
And there's instead of taking on everybody, because we can't help everybody, and there's some that don't want to be helped as well. So it's hard to work with clients that don't want the result, don't want to do the work, and so it's better off just realizing that up front and not even taking them on.
Yeah, and I think that that goes with anything in life, doesn't it? As a counselor and practitioner, I know for myself, I'm not going to work with somebody that I know and I can feel it almost from the start that that's not going to work. There's no way.
Yeah.
It's like the person that doesn't pay you when they say they come and see you, they take your time, and then they don't send transfer
Uh,
or whatever. And then you think, you don't really want this, and I'm not going to persist this. I've got somebody at the moment that I'm working with, and it's like, no. No, this is your last chance,
Yeah.
saloon. If you don't get back to me today, that's it. It's done. I am done.
yeah.
Because I don't, if you're fighting for somebody to engage in a relationship with you, there's no point.
Right.
Absolutely no point.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah,
trying to it's
yeah.
like trying to force somebody into a marriage, isn't it? That's
Mm.
because effectively that's what you're doing. You're engaging with them in that you're committing. It's a big commitment financially for
Mm,
some people, but also
yeah.
emotionally for some people as well. And that goes in anything, like in your business in particular, Mike. It's
Yeah,
that, it's a lot of money to commit for, like, say, 3 years. If it's a 3-year contract, you've got to commit
Yeah.
that amount of money.
exactly. And if they're
Um,
not, 100% sold, or it's going to solve their problem, like you said, yeah, it's going to be a painful relationship as opposed to a positive one.
and what we do at
Yeah.
the rehab is if people don't carry on checking in while they're doing detox or whatever they're doing before they come into treatment, we take them off the waiting list. And we have a big waiting list. And it's just like,
Mm,
"No, sorry, but you've lost your bed. You've been told that you need to contact us every single day to build that rapport with the team. And you haven't, you've missed like 5 out of 7 days. I'm very sorry. You're gonna have to go back down on the list." And that's a tough position to be in, because sometimes you need to fill those beds, but actually you've got to stick to those kind of boundaries that are in place. Otherwise, it's never going to actually recover. The relationship's never going to recover.
yeah. And they're not gonna get the result that
No.
you're offering either, and then they'll tell everybody, "Well, I didn't get the result."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Go
exactly
back.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want that. Yeah.
And I suppose that comes back to, where does the responsibility lie, doesn't it? Does the
Mm,
responsibility lie with the person that's encouraging a sale? Does the responsibility lie with the customer,
mm,
or does the responsibility lie with the product?
mm. I my personal belief
Yeah.
is that it lies with the salesperson.
Mhm.
So the salesperson has to have that level of integrity that says, I will only sell this product and service to the people that I know we can help.
Yeah.
And that happened to me. One of my sales jobs was selling a coaching program, and I sold like close to $4 million of this program over 3 years, and from primarily from the stage. And the product started to change and not be as good, and I saw that people weren't getting the results and all this, and I could just see my close rate go down, 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 down. I was like, I'm out. Like, I don't believe in the product anymore, so
Yeah.
I
Mm.
have to get out. Yeah.
And that's a really good, yeah, good thing to do. If you don't believe in it, you're not going to ever sell it to the best of your ability because you don't believe in it. And how do you get your potential customers to believe in it if you don't?
Yeah. Yeah, that's hard.
A
You
and that also links to, like, staff and retaining staff and keeping people on or not keeping people on, and are they the right person? Do you give somebody wage rise when you know damn well that they're actually not really interested any longer with the product,
mm,
whatever that service or product is, that you can see that within them. They've no longer either moved with the company or don't really appreciate what the company's doing now. And I think that's something, as an employer, for me, it's recognizing when somebody needs to move on and they need to leave.
yeah, especially if they're not buying into the
Yeah.
why you're doing what you're doing, and understanding everything about the business. Yeah, that's toxic.
Or wanting to change things that don't need to be changed.
But like, go start your own business. This one's mine.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, you're damn right there. Yeah. Go and work for somebody else. Go and do something else, but don't mess about with my business.
That's right.
So do you have people that do any work for you or not?
Yeah, I have, so we have a appointment setting service as well. So I have appointment setters, and I have an assistant, that work with me, and everybody's remote. So I've not met anybody that works with me, which is for the last 3 years, which is interesting in this particular job.
And how are you finding managing remote people?
Um, it's a challenge at times. So, but we have some technology that makes sure that people are on when they're supposed to be on, and we have weekly meetings. We have Zoom meetings on a regular basis. We have Slack, so we're in communication with everybody, and I think that helps. Um, and it also helps with productivity too, like not having everybody in the
Yeah.
office. Because the businesses that I've worked with that have everybody in the office, I'll go visit and I'll do some training in the office, and I just feel my own productivity like half the
Really?
moment I step their building, because it's oh, let's catch up, let's talk, let's oh, hey, did how was that game the other day, or whatever the conversation ends up. And it's like, hey, I really need to get my work done. And it's like, put the earphones on and do the work. But it's a yeah, I don't think I'd ever work in an office again.
Do you know, it's strange that, because I actually don't think I would want to do remote all the time. I like
Mm,
both. I actually do like both. I like that balance between the two. I mean, I don't need to go in the office anymore if I don't want to. I choose to
yeah.
go in because I like going in, and I like the interactions with other people. Um,
Mm.
and I think it's important for my own mental well-being and my own arrogance, because I think, being around people, they can put you in your place when you actually need to be put in your place. And I'm quite up for somebody telling me, not that people rarely tell me.
No.
Sorry.
So, winding back a little bit on your story, I'd love to know more about what made you a start your fitness business, and then what led to the sale. If you're happy to share that kind of story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was working in corporate America for 12 years, primarily in logistics. So moving freight from point A to point B, not the most exciting thing, and not saving people's lives or anything like that. But doing that for so long and working in an office, I got really overweight, about 40 pounds overweight. And then my health started to suffer as well. So I was getting like really, really bad headaches, and it ended up my blood pressure was going really high, and I also had high cholesterol, and a family history of heart disease. So combine those three things together, and I was 30 years old. When I went to see the doctor, he was like, you're going to be lucky to see 40 if you
Wow.
don't change something. So he made the suggestion that I take two different pills, one for the cholesterol and one for the high blood pressure. And I was like, well, I'm not really into taking the pills, but like, what else could I do? Maybe. And he was like, well, some people do this thing called diet and exercise, but I don't know. Just take the pills. It'll be easier, right? He's no longer practicing medicine, thankfully. And I like a challenge, so I decided to do the diet and exercise thing. So I found a book. It was called Body for Life. It was back in 2001, and it was a really well written book because it was step by step. And if you know you'll hear this theme in my life: process, process, process. I like recipes. I'm not a chef. I can't come up with a recipe, but I can
Hmm.
follow any recipe and have a great meal. So in anything, if the directions are there, I can follow it. And they were there. So it was 3 days of cardio, 3 days of strength training, and eat 5 to 6 meals a day. They told you exactly what to eat, when to eat. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so I followed it exactly to the T. And in 12 weeks, I lost 40 pounds of fat and gained 10 pounds of muscle. But
Wow.
more important, yeah, and my cholesterol came way down, and my blood
Blood
pressure came
pressure.
way down as well. Yeah.
And what was it called again?
But it was called Body for Life. I don't think the books are probably still out there, but they don't. They were running a contest that, if you were chosen and you had to do your before and after picture, they would give you $100,000.
Oh, wow.
And so, I mean, I was motivated to get my health, but 100 grand in the bank doesn't hurt either. I didn't win the competition, but I did get a T-shirt from them, which was really nice. But it was extra large. I'm not quite sure what they were trying to
What
tell
the
me.
logic was there? Yeah.
And they're like, "Look how loose it is now. You lost all that weight." Yeah.
Amazing.
But through that through that process, people started asking me, like, "What's your secret? Like, what are you taking? What are all those shortcuts that you're doing?" And I found a lot of joy in explaining and teaching people what I was doing. So I was like, boy, I should monetize this. And so I went and got certified as a personal trainer, and I started training people on the weekends and before work, after work, and just build up my clientele base till I could quit my day job. And I quit my day job in January of 2008, right at the height of the housing crisis, or one of the recessions that we've been through,
Yeah,
which is a really good time to start a business.
very
And
good.
I purchased an existing facility, and like I said before, like within 6 months, I almost went broke. Um,
What
but
what was the
at that
reason that
point,
you what was the reason you
was
almost
that
went broke?
I didn't know how to sell. Like I,
Okay.
like literally, when somebody would come into the facility, they would, it was different when it was just me as a personal trainer. Like I could create their relationship with somebody, and they're like, "Hey, do you mind work? Yeah, we can work out together. Like let's just do 10 sessions to start." And they're like, "Yeah, great." And they write me a check. It wasn't that hard. But when you're trying to fill up a facility and other trainers, then you have to really hone your sales skills. But somebody would walk into the facility, I'd be working out with somebody. I was like, "Oh, just do 10 more reps." I run up to the front. I'm like, "Yeah, what do you want?" Literally like that too. Like, "Yeah, what do you want?" Rapport building, right? Number one. And then there was like, "Oh, I'm thinking about working out. I would need to lose some weight." And I probably would do the up down on them. And so, yeah, you do. And then, and then, I mean, it's so cringeworthy. And then I would just say, "Yeah, it's $60 a session. If you buy 10 sessions, then you get the 11th for free. Do you want it?" And always they would say, "Oh, let me think about it."
Yeah,
I'd give them
yeah.
my card, and 9 times out of 10, they would not think about it and not come back. But reverse now to, after I got some coaching and I really dove deep into sales and understanding sales psychology, and especially when you're selling a service. Once I created that process and then followed step by step through that, the very first sale that I made was 100 sessions for $5,500.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And it blew me away. Like I think I said to the woman when after I did the whole presentation, and you're supposed to do the close, and say, "Well, in my expert opinion, you really need the 100 sessions, but you could do it with 50, but I really recommend the 100 sessions. That'll be 5,500." And, I zip up my mouth and not talk. And when she said, "Yeah, okay, let's do that," I think I said, "Are you sure?" Like nobody's ever. I was like, "How do I even process a credit
That's
card
it.
for 5,000? Will it even go through?" Sure enough, it did. It was amazing.
Wow. I bet
Wow.
you felt
And
so good.
oh, it was amazing. And that shifted my business. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that one thing. And instead of 9 out of 10 going away and thinking about it, 9 out of 10 joined the program going forward.
Yeah, yeah.
And business just blew up, and that coaching company, they're like, You're doing really good. Would you like to coach other fitness owners?" I said, "Yeah, that sounds like fun. Business is going good. I'm kind of getting bored with it." So I started doing that, traveling all over, doing seminars and selling their program on the back end of that seminar. And then, I went back to, owning the gym after I lost trust in their product. And then I was like, "Hey, I really love that. I need to do that more." And at that point, then I decided to sell the business and go all in on the impact pilot and
Wow.
helping people with sales.
That sounds really good. And in
Yeah.
terms of the process of selling the fitness business, was that a long process or was it pretty overnight?
Well, it takes 10 years to make an overnight success. So it took 10 years to sell it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because no, well, not, I mean, I'm being a little facetious. I went in buying that business knowing that at some point I would sell it.
Mhm.
So I think every business owner has to have an exit strategy, because you're not going to own your business forever, because you're not going to live forever. So what's the exit strategy? Are you just going to let it kind of die out? And I've seen people do that too. Or are you setting it up for sale? Once I made the decision to set it up for sale, then I did everything that I needed to do to make it attractive to a buyer. So that included not doing all the funny things with accounting that business owners like to do with their accounting. Trips to Costco, not really a business expense. Uh, so I squared up the accounts, which a year, 2 years, a much higher profit, which was more realistic instead of Tom paying for dog grooming out of the business because the dog was part of the gym, right? So
Of
that's a
course.
business expense, and of course, right. Nobody from the IRS is listening, right? but but it took about a year and a half to kind of square everything up, and then I just started to reach out to people that I knew that were other personal trainers. They were training outside or things like that, and I approached a couple of people, and one of them said, "Yeah, let's do it," and he bought it,
Amazing. And is it
Wow.
still running now?
and yeah, it's still going. It's still going
Amazing.
today. So that's always a nice. And they didn't even change the name, which I thought they would have at least changed the name, but yeah, it's pretty awesome.
That's really cool. Yeah. And have you thought about starting any other businesses? Obviously you're doing your sales training, but have you got any other ideas that you'd like to look at?
Yeah, well, I have the call center
Mhm.
or appointment setting service, so that is kind of the bigger part of what I do, and that feeds the sales coaching as well because we
Okay.
serve the same clients. Um, but that, yeah, I mean, at that point, I'm at the stage of my life where I don't want to work anymore, so um, I'm
So that's
looking at retirement options.
so that's a great segue into what do you do in your personal time?
I usually go to the gym because that's just kind of my life, and then it's been for 15, yeah, 15, 16 years since owning the gym. But yeah, so I'll go to the gym usually every day, and then I love travel. So take a week. Usually there's a trip every month that I'll take. Even during the pandemic, I would just tour around Taiwan. 'Cause couldn't
Nice.
leave and come back. So I've seen more of Taiwan than most Taiwanese have seen.
That's a great claim to fame, I feel.
Yeah, I think
And do
so.
you
Yeah.
like it?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I mean, the people are great here.
Yeah.
Um, Food is amazing, and I'm in Taipei, so it's like living in Chicago or New York, London. It's like everything that you would want in just retail, restaurant, living conditions is here, and
Yeah.
it's a fraction of the cost.
I was going to say, what's the cost?
Yeah, well, I shouldn't say a fraction necessarily because real estate is very expensive to buy, but to rent is relatively inexpensive, which doesn't quite make sense in my mind. But I
Yeah,
live
it's
in,
unusual.
yeah, it is very unusual. So I live in a high rise building in a very popular neighborhood, and it's 1,300 US a month, so 1,300. It's a two bedroom. Um, Yeah, two-bedroom high-rise. There's a pool in the building that I've never gone to, and, they have a KTV karaoke. They have 2 karaoke rooms here that I've
Love
not been
it.
to. I know. So into karaoke here. Um, it's so it's so bizarre, but it's in the middle of everything, which I really love. So, when I talk to my Taiwanese friends, it's, they ask, "How much are you paying a month?" And I tell them, and they're like, "Oh my, it's so expensive." I'm like, "Is it?"
And what's the cost
I
of
don't
living
think it
like?
is.
What's food and things like that like over there?
Food, like, if you go to the grocery store, it's less now than, say, the US.
Mhm.
US pricing or UK pricing, definitely. I was just in the UK last month, and I was like, "How much for a hamburger?" I'm like, if 17 pounds later, like, "Oh, geez."
Mm.
It's you can get a you know, sit down restaurant for, $20 US,
Wow. Yeah,
or 17 pounds or so. Yeah.
incredible.
William was saying that he's
Uh,
gone back. He's been backwards and forwards to the States in the last couple of months, but not really been home. And he said that when he went back to Detroit and he went shopping, he couldn't believe how much the prices have gone up in the States, literally in a month or too.
Yep.
It's like incredible. And I mean, we've noticed it in the UK, haven't we, a lot,
Yeah.
but it's not, it's kind of quite scary for some people, really.
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
people live out there? Do they live it comfortable lives, or is it
Yeah. Yeah. It's
good?
from what I see, it looks very comfortable. Yeah,
Yeah.
very strong family units. So a lot of people will still be living in their house, taking care of their parents or grandparents as
Mm.
well, which is that's really nice.
So do you have family in the States, or are you a
I
lone
do.
man?
Yeah, I have two older brothers and my mom. Mom's coming to visit at the end of or the beginning of September, so really excited
Oh,
Nice.
about that.
wow.
Yeah, yeah,
So have you got any nieces or nephews, or?
yeah. I have a niece and a nephew. So my niece is a traveler as well. So she's just graduated college, and she wants to come visit. When she graduated college, she was like, I'm. They call me Uncle T. Uncle T, I'm ready for my gap decade. I'm like, gap
Love it.
decade. I don't think it quite works that way, but if you can make it work, like
Yeah,
why not? Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Do it while you're
brilliant.
young. Like yeah.
What does your nephew do?
He works with special needs
Right,
kids, and so does
okay.
she. So they're both kind of not really counselors, but they like
Yeah.
at halfway homes and for autistic children primarily.
Wow. It's
Brilliant.
nice work to get
Yeah.
into. I couldn't do it. To be truthful with you, I'd find that quite difficult to work in that field. But people would say the same about my job. So I think it's the luck of the draw,
We all
really.
do what we love, right?
Yeah, we do. We do it that. Well, I'm just aware we've nearly ran for an hour and we've all got
Yeah,
schedules. So do you
yeah,
want to
no
do
worries.
the famous question that we always ask?
Yeah, so we always ask all of our guests to tell us. Yeah, it's always a bit of a surprise. We always ask, what's your goal for the year? Because what we like to do is invite guests back in a year time and say, did you achieve the goal that you set? So have you got a goal that you
That's
can
so
share?
good. I do have a goal, and that is 100 clients by the end of the year. And so that's
Okay,
in the appointment setting service. So yeah, 100 clients, and we're halfway there,
fantastic,
and it's
amazing.
a little bit more than half the year. So crunch time. Let's do our
Sounds
marketing.
good. Amazing. And just for everyone listening or watching, how can they get in touch and find out more about you?
Yeah. So my website is probably the best place to go. And if they want to learn how to tell better stories, I have a little book on a workbook on how to do that free. So it's Tom Jacobs, Jackobs. So TomJackobs.com/storybook. And they can download that and get started on telling their own personal story.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been really interesting. I really enjoyed it.
Do we have your address?
I think we do. I think we might have. We'll reach out
That's
and,
all
and
right, because
grab
I
it.
was gonna.
If
I'll
not,
send.
I'll send.
Yeah, send it over because I'll send you a copy of my book.
Awesome. Looking forward to that. That's awesome. I'm working on
Nice.
one right now as well.
Oh, brilliant.
Good.
Fun. Yeah,
We can,
yeah.
we'll
Well,
share contact
yeah,
details
we,
and
we
we
will.
can,
We will.
yeah,
Really lovely to talk to you. Really
Oh,
nice. Thanks for coming on.
no problem. Thank you guys. Really appreciate
Take
amazing.
it.
Thanks
take
very much.
care.
Have a good rest of the day.
You too.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye
Bye.
bye.